Good afternoon, everybody. This is Heath Hockenberry here in Boise. Thanks for coming out actually tuning in or dialing in for this presentation on the 7-day fire danger forecast tool that was developed in the northern Dakotas. And there was interest immediately, I believe, from the Missoula Fire Lab on its utility for expanding the service for NFDRS forecasts, not only from a 24 hours perspective, but also out to 7 days as well. So, Tommy, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. It's a very small presentation, but hopefully it'll be effective and it will inspire some questions here. And so what we'd like to do is kind of create a tag team effort here between Tom and Larry Bradshaw at the Missoula Fire Lab. Hopefully many of you are familiar with Larry. Also, myself, at the end, I'm going to be talking about where we would like to take this as a national program, and just to get your ideas and a sense of what you feel should be the direction here. And with that, I'm hoping that Tom is ready to get started. I think I will be driving the presentation, so whenever you need to change slides, Tommy, let me know. And can everybody see the screen? Did I get a volunteer to say yes?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, with that, Tom, are you ready? Take it away.
Yep, I'm ready.
Awesome. Okay, I'll launch it. Okay.
All right, well, thank you. Like he said, my name's Tom Grafenauer. I'm the Science and Operations Officer at the Grand Forks National Weather Service. I guess Bismarck National Weather Service Office and us at Grand Forks, Bismarck has probably been more involved with this, getting it going, and working with the Fire Lab to develop a fire danger map based on the forecast, the FWM forecast that we issue daily. You can go to the next slide. So that fire danger map was based on our FWM forecast, was kind of the initial driver, and we thought, well, if we're making a fire danger map based on just for one day, a kind of a 24-hour forecast, it sure would be nice to potentially in the future be able to make a fire danger type of forecast for each of the next 7 days, since that is what we're forecasting in our GFE grids in the NDFD database. We have the data. It probably would be an easy step to actually be able to produce 7 days of fire weather forecast. So the current, I guess, NFDRS forecast and the current FWM product that we issue is basically issued once per day, no edit option. You can also think of edit as update. So there's no option to really update the forecast if the forecast changes. And it also is just a one single 24-hour forecast production, or basically a one-day FWM. So the proposed changes and what we've been testing for the past year is to still issue the main forecast just once per day, so really nothing changes like that. However, we do add the option, say on a midnight shift, to be able to update the forecast. So the PM version is what we're currently doing, issuing an FWM in the afternoon, but the AM option can be looked at as an update. So at 4 a.m. after you've done your forecast on the midnight shift, you're able to send an FWM that will update that previous FWM. And then the other proposed change and what we've been testing is to actually extend the forecast projections out to 7 days. And this just basically uses the grids that are in GFE that we already produce. So in the FWM, each site currently has one line. What we have is each site then has 7 lines, one line for each day of the forecast. Next slide. So from a field office perspective, what changes, what doesn't change, what does it look like? Well, grid editing techniques are going to remain unchanged. Everything that you've done previously to edit grids, to produce, fire weather forecasts and public grids is unchanged. And really the FWM generation procedure is unchanged. It's still through the formatter launcher, and it still basically is one click of a button and the FWM is produced. So what are the changes? What are some differences at a field office that you can expect? Well, the first difference is that ability to actually update the FWM in the morning. And I believe this morning updated AM FWM forecast that we send out is what's actually used to create the fire danger map for the day. So it's very important to get the latest, greatest forecast data to produce the fire danger map, which is why we wanted that option. At Grand Forks and Bismarck, we handle things a little bit differently currently. Here at Grand Forks, the afternoon generation is manual, so we actually open the formatter launcher, click the generate button, it runs, and then we hit the transmit and send it out. The morning generation is automatic, so between 3 a.m. and 5 p.m. local, after we publish the grids to official, a script checks to make sure to see that whenever the official database has been updated, it then automatically generates and sends the FWM. Bismarck has fully automated the sending of the FWM, so the afternoon and the AM issuances are automatically, and they never need to bring up the formatter launcher to send the FWM. The runtime is significantly longer, so if you manually generate the FWM with the 7-day forecast, what used to take a few seconds will now take a few minutes. Next slide. So this is just a screenshot of the formatter launcher. When you do run it, a GUI will pop up, and you'll have the option for which forecast issuance, the AM or the PM. Like I said, maybe these could be labeled a little bit differently, where PM could be looked at as routine, AM could be looked at as the updated forecast. Next slide. So after you click OK and the formatter runs, this is what it looks like. So you can see that each site now has 7 days worth of data, or 7 lines, and each line is for 1 day of data, or for forecast. And next slide. So what are the requirements for a forecaster that's attempting to generate the FWM with the 7-day forecast? Well, really, the grids needed for the tool do not change. There are no new grids that are required. The thing that is required to generate this 7-day FWM is already required in the NFDRS, or in the database that we send. I'm getting a little tongue-tied there, but everything that we produce is already required. So really, there's nothing new. Everything should pretty much be plug and play. The one thing to note is the wet flag. Although it's not required currently, what the FWM does, formatter does, if there's no grid created, it automatically puts the wet flag equal to no. So you would actually have to manually put yes in the wet flag grid in order to get a Y in that FWM line. All right, next slide, and I believe I am done.
Yes, thank you very much. So that is the quick overview of the Weather Service side. We also have on the call Mr. Larry Bradshaw from the Missoula Fire Lab Research Station up there in the Northern Rockies in Missoula. And from the fire agency side, I think it took some reprogramming to get this thing to work on the WIM side. So perhaps, Larry, you want to give everybody on the call a quick overview of how that product is ingested and how it spits out
Sure.
fire danger.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, from Missoula. So yeah, the forecast part of the WIMS thing is probably something that hasn't changed for a long, long time, and it's been kind of hardwired to accept a one-day forecast for the next day, and only accept that forecast in the afternoon before the next day, kind of in the as you probably all know, in 3 o'clock in the afternoon type range. And when the folks in North Dakota were trying to work with this map and do the updates in the mornings, they were getting air rejections and things like that. So so we had to look at having WIMS, the WIMS programmer, allow an updated forecast in the morning, expand the expectation of the forecast sequenced from 1 day up to 7 days. It could go, if something happened and you only got 3 days forecast out, it'll still work. And so, and this, what you're looking at now is sort of within the WIMS, the display of the point forecast in WIMS for 7 days from the 1st of November through the 7th of November. And I just highlighted a day when there was a rain event, so the state of the weather was 6, and there was 8 hours of duration forecasted. So, so getting the data into WIMS took a little bit of updating, and then the processor had to be updated also to also work for 7 days. And more importantly, as WIMS, the fire danger rating system sort of has a 7-day lag time and a waiting period for the 1,000-hour fuel moisture. So as that was processing the forecast, we had to change the logic so that it would instead of going from the last observation, it would switch as the forecast went forward. It would go to the forecasted 7-day boundary conditions instead of the observed 7-day boundary conditions. So that took a little bit of time to get that squared away, but we got that squared away, and things are looking real good with a recent update in late October. And if you want to go to the next slide, please, Keith. This is kind of what it looks like in WIMS as we view the indices, and you can see on that green day there, November 3rd, where the rain event was forecasted, the resulting forecasted fuel moistures increased quite a bit too. Like particularly the 100-hour, the HU-FM went from 20, forecasted to be 20 on the 2nd to 24 on the 3rd, and the fine fuel moistures went up from 14 to 28 and things like that. So it's basically just extending the capability and having the update. So it seems to be working good. If you want to go to the next slide, Heath. The current status in WIMS, anyway, it's in the 4.1 production system. It allows the PM, the standard forecast, as Tom talked about, the AMs, or even, if you had an evening update in the forecast, you could do it. You can forecast an update up until, I think, an hour before the observation time, until almost 11 o'clock in the morning if something really was changing. We here at the Fire Lab and the WIMS programmer monitored the summer and fall from Bismarck, and I think they were doing 11 stations, and Grand Forks was doing 9 stations twice a day. And we're looking for element errors, not necessarily accuracy of forecast at all, but basically making sure that the forecast elements were within the parameters. An example would be that the forecast minimum RH couldn't be greater than the forecasted RH at the 1300, because, as you know, we looked at the 24-hour max and mins. And that took a little bit of work on their part on the early iterations we did, but once we got into July or August, we didn't see any errors, so things are working good, and WIMS seems to be able to handle the back and forth and things like that without any issues. So that's kind of where we're at from the WIMS side. We're ready to accept more stations or more forecasts whenever we're ready to move forward. And back to you, Heath.
Right. Thanks, Larry. Funny you should mention that, accepting more stations. So, again, this is kind of my position on this as National Program Manager. Given that there are no additional grid editing requirements, And also, very importantly, that by policy, I don't think we're expecting forecast all this to be doing if we rolled this out or when we plan on rolling it out nationally. So the expectation is to do what you're doing right now. And in summary, we would like to expand and get that 7-day input into WIMS so that we can move forward with 7 days of fire danger output from WIMS from our forecast database. The assumption is the NDFD grids would provide good trends and a good estimate east for days 2 to 7 in an automated fashion if you chose not to edit it. And again, no national requirement to edit the output past the current WFO editing practices at the moment. So what I would like to do as a proposal is in the December or January timeframe is to get more forecast offices on board with using this tool. Install it, running it, disseminating it, providing updates when necessary. I think a couple of forecast offices have already stepped forward and expressed interest, such as I believe Missoula, and also I thought I heard Miami was interested in a place in a southern area. I thought it was Miami, but and once we get an additional 5 to 10 FO sites installing this and running it and getting it into WIMS, the Missoula Fire Lab would test its performance, provide a recommendation to move forward or not. We could reconvene in April on a webinar for the FOs that have tested this out. And then assuming that this runs smoothly, we could move forward with PNS and a service change notice to process those additional stations and Bismarck and the Dakotas to make it operational. And finally, for this summer or fall, we could expand this nationally. I would provide a summary of this to the National Union. I have one prepared already to coordinate, to express my opinion that the workload is minimal. On this, it would just be installing a tool and running this on a national basis. Hopefully by 2017, if everything goes well, every forecast office will be issuing 7-day forecasts. And that concludes the, not the talking heads, but the talking voices here. And I'm definitely open to questions or volunteers or anybody that has an opinion on what you learned today from the webinar.
Hi, this is Janine in Bismarck.
Hi, Janine.
We're, as you know, we're currently producing the 7-day forecast, but we're wondering where can we see the output of it right now? If I go into WIMS and hit DPFCST, I'll see the output of that, which includes burning index, spread component. Is there a place that we can find what the fire danger rating would be?
In WIMS, you would go to DIDX, and I'm not sure. I don't know, Janine, yet if when you guys get the reports back from WIMS for the forecasted fire danger indices, I don't know if we're sending 7 days of those back or not. I'll have to find out. But
Okay.
if you can go back to slide 8, Heath, the fast path to get there is DIDX, and then you just put the station in, or if you have a SIG or you want to do a group of stations, we can make you a SIG, and you just select the type F is the forecast and for the date range, and you can go from today out 7 days in that date range and click find, and that's where the actual indexes are.
Do you have a WIMS account, Janine, I assume?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right.
What I'm seeing on that slide is R, the adjective rating?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And Janine, actually, WIMS provides a what do they call it? Data services, web services that you can use a little wget program and some XML or some arguments, and you can bring it back as an XML file too. If that would be something you can do, and you can script those so they automatically do that. And that's what Matt does to get your information and make those maps. And we can chat about that off. Or on WIMS, there's actually on the home page, there's a link to a XML tech note that has examples of how to do that. You could do that way and automate it and populate it without even checking into WIMS.
Hey, Larry, could you express to the callers the value to the fire agencies that this carries as well? I think it has the potential in helping predictive services and.
I can express my opinions. Yeah, and the predictive services just had their meeting. I wasn't there, but Matt was there. But so one thing is just obviously to look out just beyond tomorrow and look for changes that are coming. My philosophy in fire danger rating has always been sort of, what it does really well is predict changes, or once you get to a certain threshold, and once you're at a certain threshold within fire danger rating, as long as you're above that threshold, things, it doesn't really matter if the index goes up a little bit or down a little bit. You're there, and you're in fire season. But what it does is sort of like looks at those shoulder seasons and things like that, and so to be able to predict that out maybe a little more longer than we've been able to do would be very helpful. And the other thing, I guess, that I'm hoping would come of this is, the predictive services 7-day dryness product is based on pretty much the same NDFD, same algorithms, but it's sort of done on a different computer. And if this sort of forecasting scheme was institutionalized and automated, and what the predictive services is getting is completely automated. I mean, they're just getting the morning grids without, I don't think, any of the forecasters' thought behind it. So they get the initial grids and go with it for the 7-day dryness product. So I would think that if every station in that was running NFDRS was getting an automated 7-day forecast, that someday that would be the basis for the predictive services dryness product. And if another model comes out, the beauty of this is it can now be an institutionalized or a standard product, and if you guys change your forecast models or whatever, you're still going to be generating formatting this output pretty much the same, and WIMS can run those forecasts. And it doesn't rely on a third party like the Fire Lab to do it, or the DRI was doing parts of it, and we were doing parts of it, and there was different formats for different parts of the country and things like that. So if we could, have this as a standardized output, run 365 days a year, automated, I think it'd be really neat.
I'm in agreement with that. It brings us, closer together in terms of a consistent message.
Mm-hmm.
And as our models improve and our NDFD skills go up accordingly, that will be brought into WIMS at the same time.
Right, and so at this point, the neat thing about doing it through the text, forecast that they were doing is WIMS doesn't really care what the resolution of the NDFD models is. It doesn't care as long as you're generating point forecasts for those stations. It's happy.
Wonderful.
Go
ahead. Sorry.
This is Ken in Amarillo.
Hi, Ken.
Hi. Could Amarillo be one of the test sites?
I'm writing it down, and you're most welcome to join the party.
Great. Thank you so much.
Hey, Heath. This is Angie and Jax. We'd be interested in volunteering as well.
Wonderful.
Come on, Angie, you're killing me. This is Rick in Tampa. Heath, I'm here with our Sue, and he was wanting to join as well.
Okay. We'll get Florida covered.
Yeah, and especially if Miami does it, because we're their secondary backup, so we could even test some backup possibilities.
I thought it was Paul that mentioned Miami when they caught wind of it.
I'd heard Miami also, somewhere along the line. But so actually, that's sort of interesting that you mentioned the backup, because when you got AWIPS was upgraded or something like that, right?
Yes.
There was a little burp. Tommy and Janine, I don't know if you guys remember that or not. When that came through, like Grand Forks did Bismarck for a day or two, or vice versa, and they were getting off to a different database, and things kind of got messed up for about a day or two. Do you remember that?
That must have been when we upgraded to AWIPS 2.
Yes, exactly. It was during the upgrade phase, and one of the stations was backing up for another or something like that, and so for like 2 days there was a little blip in the forecast. So testing it as a backup, in the test would be a good thing to look at.
Keith is Mark Stropwolf in Salt Lake.
Mark?
Question for you. Precipitation duration, is every element going to be included out through 7 days? Because we only produce 6-hourly grids up through 3 days and 12-hour grids beyond. How's that going to impact the relevance duration?
When we developed those logics, we passed on, and I forget exactly. It's very vague out past the 3 days. It's based on POP, I think. POPs. Basically, if the POP, you do POPs after 3 days, is that right? Or QFP?
We do 6-hourly POPs up through 3 days, and then it goes to 12-hour.
And then is there all the way through is 12-hour?
Yeah, from there on.
Yeah. We've got a little rule set that we sent to those guys, and I forget exactly what it was, but it works good enough, especially for past 3 days.
That's a big issue, and I had investigated this literally years ago, asking at the time HPC if there was any intent to provide some national grids out to 7 days on POP or hours of precip to work in WIMS, and they ran into a brick wall. But using the other elements that are in the grids and using that fuzzy logic kind of produce what's necessary to at least provide some output past day 3.
Right.
And one other thing, we don't produce lightning activity level beyond 3 days, so I guess that would have to come from POPs as well, or something to that nature?
I think you can leave it out.
Yeah,
you would be able to? Okay.
Yeah, this is Tommy. If the LAL is missing, it just sets to 1, I believe.
Right.
Or it's just blank. I think blank is okay, too.
Okay, thanks.
For Tommy, one last question. Is there documentation on the tools installation, kind of metadata on how to set this up yet, or that's something we work offline to get distributed out?
Yeah, we can work offline to do that. If I remember right, about half a year ago, Bismarck was working on that, and they were working to actually put it on the SCP. And I think they also provided documentation with that, but that's something that was a long time ago, and I kind of forget the details. So we'll have to look more into that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to revisit that here at Bismarck. This is Janine. I don't remember that either, so we'll have to talk with Tommy offline here and maybe with Dave DeRung here. I'm not sure exactly how that went.
Yeah, I think Todd Hamilton put something together, so we'll have to check with him, Janine.
Well, maybe we can, after this is over, we can get together maybe before Christmas, hopefully. And is it onerous? Is it something that would be difficult?
Nope, should be relatively simple.
Okay. All right, any other last-minute questions?
Yeah, this is Goodland. If you need any more volunteers, we'd be willing to give it a whirl, too.
Wonderful.
This is Sue here, Jeremy, Martin. Just send me an email with the details, and we'll try to help out.
Thanks, Jeremy. Martins with an S?
Yeah, Martin.
There were 2 other ones listed.
Hey, Heath, this is John over at Jackson, Kentucky. We might be interested in giving this a try as well.
Okay.
We might run it through our lot locally first. So if we could maybe have the PowerPoint or recording available, fairly soon, and just kind of run it by, or give some more background information, that would be great.
Yeah, the recording of this, which will include the PowerPoint on it as well, will be posted later today on the Fire Weather Google Sites page.
Okay, thanks.
And I do intend on sending the document on this, describing the product to Dave Murray, National NWS Review. John Fox has looked well as the fire weather rep, and happy that we were doing this presentation and was in verbal support of it. So we'll see, and if you have your lot meetings and the issue comes up, let John know.
Okay. All right, and we could probably give this a start in the spring, where we have the split season. We could probably start it up in February here, most likely, unless we get some reason it doesn't. People aren't too excited about it. But I'd say it's probably would be a go here.
This time frame is try to stick with it as much as we can, but it is still flexible depending on when your startup times are. All right.
So the next Fire in the Fives is scheduled for January 5th. We don't have a confirmed speaker as of yet, and I'm not sure with holiday leave if we are going to get one, but I will be in touch with you through your regional weather program managers. We are or are not going to have one. Either way, we'll get word to you so you can register for the next one.
There was a flag, but there wasn't an RE.
Thank you, Larry and Tom and Janine and all those who helped make this happen.
You're welcome, and thanks for Bismarck and North Dakota in general for working on this with Matt and I.
Hey.
Okay.
Thanks for attending, everybody.
Welcome, thank you.
Thank you.